Once upon a time it was quiet in Spain, then loud as the day when we won. Plenty left to say, a total eclipse of the sun. There you go. Well met, lords and ladies. Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. I think this is officially the latest that I have started a given Walking Wednesday in quite some time. Not the latest ever, but certainly up there. You know, because I've recorded when it was dark before, and in some parts of the world it was dark fairly recently. Because yes, elephant in the room, I suppose, or behind me, is that I'm filming this during the solar eclipse that is happening. Hence it is during it, I don't know. And you can't really tell. I decided I was going to go in here to take refuge to, block things out, because when we were trying to get pictures of it earlier, it was, we were blocked by trees, mostly. But yeah, that's what we've been doing, because it's supposedly ending in like 40 minutes or something like that. Which honestly, I thought that they only lasted like 8 minutes for some reason. I learnt in the past, but there you go. Shows you what they teach you at school sometimes. No, but seriously, in any case, yeah, well, I thought might as well do something interesting during this interlude here, which yeah, is exactly what's happening. Because I mean, I can't really beat what I did last time during the last eclipse. I was going to tell Everly about this because, she asked me a couple of days ago if it was going to take place, if it was going to actually get an eclipse here, or was it just, somewhere like mainland Europe, essentially. And she said, like, oh yeah, this is also going to happen in Belgium. I was like, I mean, yeah, that does track. The sky is largely the same over there. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure I was sort of in Belgium during the last eclipse from 2015. Because I would have thought it was a different year, actually, for some reason. But I don't know, I guess I got my calendars crossed. Actually, yeah, it would have been, because I'm trying to think on top of my head. Because I'm sure I did, maybe like one PTO trip or possibly two, and then afterwards was the ski one, because that was the thing. Because we used to do like school trips at a certain point every year, and you could like select which ones were happening simultaneously. Like the PGL trip is more like, outdoor activities and such. Now I think about it, there's a picture of me from year 9, which must mean I would have been in year 10. So yeah, it was 2015. Yeah, when I went to the ski trip. And yeah, that was somewhat nerve-wracking, actually, when I was there, because they said, that with ski goggles, which are supposed to, help protect from like the reflective like lens of the snow, or the reflective like shining of the snow, I mean. Luminosity is the word I'm thinking of. And basically, basically protect your eyes that way so you don't, dazzle yourself normally. Apparently, they're worse than sunglasses when it comes to eclipses. Not sure if that's, I don't know. I didn't look into it, I just believed them. And yeah, I was worried because I thought, well, I mean, does that mean that they're working overtime in terms of luminosity for the snow? Am I good to look in any direction while this is happening? But yeah, most of the time I kept my head down. I think I might have like seen it once or something. I don't remember. But yeah, they said, not even sunglasses and such. So I don't know really. But yeah, that was why I wasn't able to prepare for that one, and narrowly missed it. And then in this one, everyone started ordering Eclipse goggles at the same time, so that was oversaturated too. Not even Amazon Prime could save me there. But essentially everyone was using the combined word of mouth pigeonhole camera technique, whether or not it was me holding up a piece of paper so I could see like the contour of it through a hole in an egg basket, or it was the neighbours projecting further down and resting the paper so they could actually, I guess, see it in real time. Because the thing is, it's also a low on the horizon eclipse, so it's a little bit different to last time, and I guess for that reason it was a bit difficult either to angle, or in my case, not hit the trees, or not be impeded by the trees, which I am now using to my utmost advantage. I don't think we're going to have a problem with this video because, you know, it does seem like the brightness levels are roughly the same as before, unless my eyes have adjusted. If anything, I remember there was a video that was even worse, where I accidentally had some sort of setting on or whatever that was really dazzling people. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully this is all right. So yeah, that was that's more or less the eclipse experience, at least for me. For Spain, like I said in the beginning in improvisation, it was a little bit different because they actually got the total of it, or at least in Burgos they did. So there was a broadcast we were just watching right before I left, which was of them trying basically what I do whenever I'm solo on screen, especially on the editing stream last night, and actually making. Ow. Was there a diverging path? No, there isn't. I got 2 dogs today. It's been a while since I've had that happen to me. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so the commentator was trying to fill in the gaps. Like, this is a very eerie feeling. We might have an interruption in the broadcast. You know, it's every so often chiming in with offering a few bits of commentary, probably thinking, what the heck do I say to people? Which, again, I can intensely relate to. When it comes to solo moments, it's like why I like having either a video to react to or to discuss, or potentially, you know, a guest to bounce things off of. Which, I mean, works in the short term. I mean, for like stuff like Walking Wednesday, most of the time I've gone for if I've gone for an hour or so in terms of filming, I'm usually dissecting a film of some kind. But there's always something that happened during the week. It just so happened that the thing that happened during this week is still happening at the moment. That's really the only difference, I suppose. But yeah, they the commentator reflected on like how quiet Spain was, particularly at that point, and how what was I going to say? And how. Well, that was it really. Just how quiet Spain was, and then we commented, "Oh yeah, quiet Spain. You don't know them." And even in the actual broadcast, I don't know where they set up basically, but most of the time, whenever you see like a bunch of like TV vans and stuff, they're usually in the middle of like a public area, at least when it comes to Spain. So when they switched over and they removed the filter, so you could see the total eclipse, and they could broadcast it properly and safely. They, with a weird bit of shaky cam as well, actually. Like they did that and then it switched over. And the same thing when it went back. But yeah, once I switched over, immediately somebody went, "Que pasada, tío?" Which, you know, is essentially, you know, a way of saying, you know, that's cool. Well, that's, you know, that's awesome. So clearly the quietness of Spain lasted about as much as you would imagine it would. And now that I'm walking backwards, I'm sort of dazzling myself periodically. I definitely chose the correct route for today. But that's not all that's happening in terms of astrological events of today. There's going to be a meteor shower later on. So I might actually start stream early tonight. Because, as I've because I probably want to see that. They said ideally to go out and look at it at midnight, so that's probably what I'm going to do, actually. I believe it was the Perseids, or the Perseids. I don't know how you would actually say. Yeah, normally I say, like Nereids, but it's also Perseus, so would it be Perseids? I don't know, whatever. That lot. And, so, yeah, that's, I don't even know, like, how many there are going to be, but apparently the ideal time is midnight, but there's going to be so many more, so you never know. I guess it's, the night of infinite wishes, almost. Which sounds like a good idea for a book, to be honest. Imagine if only, like, if wishing upon a star only granted a wish to the first person that wishes on it. And so, that particular night of a meteor shower, there happened to be at least, 400 people that get a wish granted, and the world entirely unravels itself and, gets like a big upheaval or something. That's... that would be interesting, as long as it doesn't, warp reality completely, but yeah, that would that would certainly be something. I'm gonna have to workshop that one. That's a good book idea, or even like fantasy series or something. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, I guess with that, I don't really know much else. I'm at the commentator right now. I don't have much else to say at the moment. Because... Oh, wait, no. I was going to talk about what happened this week, actually. I can't believe it's been less than a week ago. But yeah, considering how much I've been trying to wind down ever since that event, I suppose it doesn't feel like it. Yes, I'm pretty sure I can actually discuss this now. I have as of Thursday officially renounced my US citizenship. So that's what I've been working on. Remember how I said before that I was like talking, well, some of you might remember this. I mentioned before I had to, talk to some lawyers on a particular day or something. That's what that was all about. Yeah, there are definitely a number of reasons beyond that, but how I'm saying that, I've been talking about like considering like how much, what direction to take in the future for myself, obviously for the channel, but for like, other stuff in general and things I want to do. And now I've got a new book idea to add to that list. But yeah, that was part of it. And US citizenship was like complicating everything because dual citizenship is quite, is quite the complicated thing when it comes to certain things. The classic example apparently is buying mortgages. Not that I'm looking to buy a mortgage, but that's like the big one that I've had as an example or something. But also I guess the one time it's like really affected me, I suppose, is dealing with like registry for things like even like the language system position in Spain, actually, because they didn't have a proper option for dual citizens. So I had to pretend until I had to declare before the bank, and I thought, oh no, I'm gonna get booted, because that was when I was doing the whole, remember the thing I mentioned last about like the police and getting like my TIE and everything. Yeah, same day, well, not same day, that was the process right before that. So, and I even had to like get something, I had to go back to the bank and get them something stamped for them. So yeah, that's been fun. But hey, the bank account that I had is still active. I was able to actually use it fairly recently on the caravan trip. I kind of switched between that one and Revolut, actually. I'm going to have to put a bit more inside of it, but I will cross that bridge when I get there. But yeah, that's just a brief overview. there are some other things that I've been like, talking about that are, very boring and not worth mentioning. Also, something I don't necessarily want to mention on camera or at all, really. So, it's just gonna give me a lot more peace of mind. So that's where I was. I was in the consulate in Frankfurt, and because that was the place that would give us the meeting the earliest. So that was like a 2-month booking process rather than a 2-year one or something, or was it 1 year? Either way, it was an enormous amount of time for like the one in London. I've even looked at the as some advice in terms of like, YouTube like monetization, because obviously Google is an American company. It declares stuff to the US. What do I do after it becomes official? Because they've got to process it and actually approve of it, but then I will retroactively have renounced after they've done that. I remember asking Google about it, and they said, "Oh, first of all, congratulations for securing a position at the meeting at the US consulate in London." I was like, well, I mean, didn't say that, but but it's fine. So yeah, but I guess the one thing I have to decide at a certain point is whether or not to actually finally withdraw the earnings from Google AdSense, because I still haven't done that. Because what happened is that they just want to say like, oh yes, secure like a payment method, or I guess like to establish like what bank it's going to go to basically. Otherwise, all of the payments are withheld. So I can see exactly how much I've made from YouTube, but it's but I just haven't officially declared like, yes, this is how it's going to be done or something. So yeah, that's gonna be a conversation as well. So there's still a lot of stuff to actually do in the in the next year basically. But the idea is that after that I will have a lot more peace of mind and stability, and be able to not have to worry about that as I take further steps in life. But yeah, onto the actual meeting itself, because that's the really interesting part. Aside from actually navigating the airport and things, because they have arrivals going in, but like the same area where they've done like security, and they do security at at like every single gate entrance instead of just at the beginning granting you access to the other gates. Which I don't know, depending on like what airports everyone's used to, that might sound like it's normal, but all the other airports that I've been to, pretty much everywhere else in the world, they will do security first, then you'll have the area with all the gates so you can like transfer between them. Like say for example, if your flight happens to be changed from one gate to another, and it requires a huge trek to traverse an airport and even go by train from one place to another, you can avoid the extra hurdle of security. And I'd already had enough trouble with the security due to a blood orange bottle that didn't register properly in their liquids identifier. So I didn't fancy doing that again. So I finished it, and then apparently they collect plastic in there. So they collect plastic bottles particularly, and apparently they get. This is one thing I do like about that place. They the more you actually put into like the machines or something to dispose of them, you actually get cash out. So some people just go around with like actual bags, asking people for their plastic, so they can get paid to recycle. Now there is an incentive. I think there's like every European country has like different things that they do interesting about recycling in general. Like over here, but we have food waste bins in a lot of counties, not all of them. In Spain, you have different coloured recycle bins for different types of recyclable items. And I guess in Germany they just try to pay you. So that was fun. but yeah, the actual, but that was the airport going back and forth, and apart from that, you know, all we did was shop to get said blood orange bottle in the first place, and you know, just grab a bunch of things, either and go to the hotel, and that was really all there was time for, because you know the flight was decent in the afternoon, the meeting was at 10 a.m. and our arrival was, I don't remember, but it was fairly late, so there was not as much that could get done. It wasn't a particularly eventful journey, aside from, you know, obviously one of the biggest and most consequential decisions of my entire life. But aside from that, it was a pretty you know, rapid and sweet affair. But yeah, I don't know what to describe the actual consulate itself. I mean, they didn't allow electronics in there, so you had to, like, you know, either give those over to them upon entering. They also do, like, you know, searches and metal detections and stuff like that. So I just went in there with my folder with all the documents they've requested, and then it turns out there were some of them that that they had in their own format that they had redone from what the lawyers had actually drafted up, along with you know, a few inputs from me, and they just shrunk it down to a different format they like to use and process, which was only slightly different in size. They could have just easily used my one. They'd rephrased some of the answers so it was like the same words, just a little bit different. You know, your book of Levi versus Nephi, I think, I believe that's accurate for Mormonism. I don't know. But the first step, aside from, you know, well, had to go to the cashier first and have them give me my ticket, and then once they called the tickets, which were all fairly out of order, there was a little bit of a waiting time there, during which we were serenaded by a very bored toddler singing the ABCs, and we all clapped. And yeah, I went in, and during that first meeting, it was all like to go over like the documents and stuff and such. And so the lady who I was talking to kept on, you know, disappearing back and forth, sometimes to reprint certain things. Other times it was just because she got called, I guess, for whatever reason. And then as it turns out, it's just as well that I looked in there, because they had my city of birth wrong on there in multiple places. You know, they say like, oh yeah, why didn't they just copy paste it from the documents that I sent them? Good question. They didn't know about the other results or something, so I know whatever system they decide to use, or lack thereof, had me, you know, had said that I was born inside of a random military base. The correct state, I'll give them that, but, you know, certainly not the place where you'd expect a maternity ward to be found, unless they have a lot of pregnant soldiers. But, you know, I doubt that is the case. So, and they also had, like, somebody else's name, or, like, the document that says, like, you know, like, I guess, like, this person says this, and then this is what, you know, you're going to lose by renouncing, like, your nationality and such. You know, read through all of these, and etc., etc. And, yeah, so then at the bottom was another part with also, was supposed to have my name, you know, where it says, like, you know, I, Jacob Butter, you know, obviously, well, not my real name, obviously, and do hereby swear or affirm, you know, that I've read this and understood it, or it's all, you know, I'm not being coerced and all that stuff. Except, of course, it said, you know, I, you know, name of other person, do swear and affirm and everything. So there was a lot of reprinting that had to be done before I was told to sit down again to be called to a different window to talk to the consul. So then I sat down again, and then it got called. I think that was when the serenade happened, actually, in between those two events. That was supposed to be when I have, you know, an interview which I prepared for, thanks to a little bit of role play with some lawyers, you know, to say, you know, go over the right answers and everything, which they gave me no notes for. So I always take that as a good sign whenever I get that whenever I get that feedback when it comes to acting. And you know, I only got asked like one question out of those. Because if I had any questions, and the one I did ask was gave me a funny look because he was unsure why I was bringing it up, and then I frankly doubted why I was even mentioning it myself, to be perfectly honest. It was just something about like US that I hadn't thought about in years and thought I needed, but by the time I realized it was a thing, it was already past the point where I should have signed up for it. So, you know, that's... And apparently you only need to do that if you're local, if you're living there. So, yeah, I was worrying for nothing. And, but yeah, after that, what was I thinking? Oh yeah, after that, there was like one more thing. Like he asked me, like, you know, where I live, basically. Because I do live in the UK. He's like, yeah, I live in the UK. That was enough for him, I suppose. I know that my address was technically on the document somewhere, and yes, I did check to make sure it was the correct address. But yeah, they and then that was that. I raised my right hand, did the renunciation, went back to the cashier window to pay, and which I don't know why they didn't just take the money first. Where was I going to go after that? And then I was out of there. I didn't even need to have stuff handed back to me because I didn't take anything in there with me. There was no reason for me to, you know, have my phone or anything. I mean, one thing I wish I would have taken in with me is like a book or something, because you know, I don't know about the waiting times and whatnot. Most people were there for visa applications, so I assume that they had a longer wait than I did. But yeah, after that was when we went, when I reunited with my mum. We went to the airport again, you know, had several vivid discussions on navigating the place. As I mentioned before, that was when our gate got changed. And then we managed to get on the plane within a decent time, and even though the flight itself was also delayed, so that might have helped us in the end. And then we were back, and then that was that. And then I've been doing, I've been either catching up, or, you know, trying to move things forward ever since. Because that's when it turns out, you know, Aiden was most available. So, you know, well, that's what that ended up resulting in, if you've seen the server. But yeah, so yeah, from this point onwards, as the eclipse clears, the light shines through. You know, it's the optimization I promised in July is most likely going to be underway sometime soon. It's not going to take effect for sometimes I need to actually, you know, prepare it and, you know, do it properly. But, you know, I've got a plan, essentially. I've got other stuff that's, you know, happening in the background, and, you know, much like the you know, the US renunciation and the US processing in general, I don't have to disclose any of that stuff until it's ready. So you'll just have to wait for that unless you're in the know already. But I suppose to that effect, that's all I have to say. So please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters. So if you haven't done so already, and comment down below what your Eclipse experience actually was, because I'm curious about that. And on that note, until next time, farewell.